It was and remains both, I think, a big challenge and an opportunity for me as a white male CEO and leading an organization that's doing this work. Before the racial equity initiative began in 2014, Sage had already been doing a fair amount of intersectional work externally. We were a founding member of a national coalition called the Diverse Elders Coalition, which is Sage, and a number of national people of color aging organizations like the National Hispanic Council on Aging and the National Indian Council on Aging. And I was the lead and am the lead still, one of the lead points in that work. And so that work was going on externally, which has its own set of challenges, obviously, when you're bringing together different communities, et cetera. But it is a whole other level of complication when you're looking at the organization itself. And you're looking at these 75 people who come from so many different experiences and communities. And we really decide we're going to start talking about race and racial equity. And I would say it was clear to me that the work was fundamentally important and had to be done. In some ways, it's not new terrain for me. At a very personal level, I am a member of an interracial couple, and in my personal life, we talk about race in our relationship and what it means for how we experience the world all the time. So I'm not unaccustomed to the conversation, but it is very different to be having that conversation in the workplace as the white male CEO of an organization. And it involves a whole bunch of considerations and again, I think challenges and opportunities. I mean, one thing clearly is to be able to recognize and account for my white male privilege. I mean, that's a basic. I mean, if I or any white CEO can't get that, then we're not going to get very far, right? And to not just say it, but to know what it means, and to know what it means and how it manifests and how it can shape our perspectives, even if we are and we believe we are, very attuned around progressive values and values around racial equity. So that I think is a really important, fundamental. At the same time, I think there are some. As a white CEO, I think there are some opportunities there. One is that what I've seen in this work, and I also know from my personal life, is that for some white people, it can be easier to have conversations about race and racism with other white people than with people of color. It can feel less charged, less threatening. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. That's the world in which we live. And so I think in a sense it creates an opportunity sometimes for me not only to hopefully model positive behavior, but also to be able to be a support for some white folks in their journey to try to learn more and make progress in these ways. And also I feel like another thing, which is another part in a sense of white privilege, but it's something that can be turned in a positive way in this work, is as a white person, a white CEO, I'm less likely to be vulnerable to you're advancing a personal agenda kind of thing, which I know on the LGBT side, I mean, we see this so often. Often it is the case in organizations and communities that it's allies who are in a better position to advance the work and the discussion than LGBTQ people themselves, who were viewed with suspicion as somehow advancing their own personal agenda, right? I mean, the fact is that racial equity needs to be all of our agendas, but I think we don't, sometimes as white people and as white leaders, we don't have to deal with that resistance, as much. But so it's a mix, of challenges and opportunities. Blind spots. I mean, the example I gave earlier about my inability to understand, the inequitable allocation of resources around the Harlem program until it smacked me in the face in the audit. I mean, there are issues with blind spots as well that come from, who I am as a white person and my experiences. So it's all of those things, at least in my walk, mixed in together.